Digital ID, you've probably heard about it, but did you know that digital ID is the diabolical plan of global billionaires to control your life and your soul? And it's already here. Nearly 1/3 of the world population already has it, China and India. You probably have heard about China, their social credit system, but India already has a digital ID system too. And people like Bill Gates want it to go worldwide. India's Andhar database, created by a billionaire friend of Bill Gates, contains the digital identifications and biometric data of more than 1.3 billion residents of India, making it the largest digital ID system ever constructed, bigger than China's. Andhar was sold to the public as a key access system to government services. In other words, you can't get government services in India without this ID. That's how it was sold. However, it also tracks users' geolocation, employment, and purchasing habits. And if you track those things, eventually you can control those things. Glitches in the system have led to an untold number of deaths among India's poor because it also controls their welfare system, and the poorest Indians were denied food rations because the system malfunctioned. Before it was corrected, many thousands died of starvation, all because of an ID system malfunction. So, do you want your ability to buy and sell to be linked to one of these systems? This is Last Day's Breaking News with Nelson Walters, and we're reporting on this today because that is a super important question. Similar systems are now being pushed toward implementation in the West, and they are starting with digital health passports. No matter what you think about the pandemic and the jab, this channel has always maintained these things are just an excuse to get our populations to accept digital ID, which will be the totalitarian control mechanism that the one world government is going to use, and health passports are an entry into digital IDs. They really aren't health passports, they're really a form of digital ID. The plan has always been pandemic first, then jab, then health passports, then to full digital ID, then finally to full digital currency, which will allow those who control the system to control virtually all aspects of your life. A leading figure in this medical dictatorship scheme is Bill Gates, who holds a dominating influence over big tech, global health policy, agriculture now, surveillance, education, and media. The World Economic Forum is also deeply invested in creating a worldwide digital ID system and a one world government run by these same global billionaires. Now, why are the governments and billionaires moving in this direction? Well, one reason is the economies of the world are about to implode from more debt than money. So the billionaires like Gates, in order to maintain their own wealth and power, want to reset the economies of the world, a do-over, so to speak. We have spoken about this frequently on this channel. They call it the Great Reset. And politicians and the World Economic Forum are very open about what their intentions are to make this happen. The governments and politicians are in on this too because a global crash would lead to revolutions and the end of their current governments. So businesses that you buy from and the politicians who run your government are in partnership to maintain their own wealth and power. In a nutshell, that is their scheme. And they plan to take totalitarian control over you, your church, and your soul if you let them. Let's talk about that last one, your soul. In the Bible, the book of Revelation is pretty clear about this coming one world totalitarian government. It calls it Mystery Babylon. Babylon was the empire of Nimrod right after the flood and was a one world government then, and the future one world government that is coming will mimic Nimrod's empire for wickedness. Only the beast empire that comes after Mystery Babylon will exceed it in wickedness. About this government we read, "For all the nations have drunk the maddening wine of her adulteries. The kings of the earth committed adultery with her." Those are the politicians. "And the merchants of the earth," those are the billionaires, "grew rich from her excess luxuries." Revelation 18:3. We learn that all the kings of the earth are ruled by this government, not some, but all. Revelation 17:18. All the nations of the earth will surrender their sovereignty to this Babylon, and its merchants will become the great ones of the earth. Revelation 18:23. This is exactly identical to the plan the United Nations envisions for 2023. A plan is in place for the nations to surrender their control to a group the UN calls, quote, thought leaders. People like the former US president and global billionaires like Bill Gates. And digital ID is central to how they plan to control the population. How does this future one world government stack up against former dictatorships that have existed like Rome, Nazi Germany, and Stalin's USSR? Well, when this one world government is destroyed, this is the reaction in heaven. Quote, after this I heard what sounded like the roar of a great multitude in heaven shouting, Hallelujah! Salvation and glory and power belong to our God, for true and just are his judgments. He has condemned the great prostitute who corrupted the earth by her adulteries. He has avenged on her the blood of his servants. Not Rome or Germany, but Mystery Babylon is the government that the saints rejoice is destroyed. While those other dictatorships relied on the use of armed forces to subdue an unruly public, this Babylon of today is going to rely heavily on weaponized medicine and the control of money to do it. It's going to do it digitally. The resurrected saints in heaven from all the ages rejoice over the destruction of his empire that you and I are about to face in our lifetimes. That's right. We are very likely the generation that this corrupt government will take power over. The Bible is perfect and its prophecies will come true. This mystery Babylon is 100% certain to happen. The only question is when, and based on events in the news, it appears it will happen in the next few years, so buckle up your seatbelts. You won't vote it out. You won't overthrow it. It is finally burned with fire by the Antichrist or the beast, Revelation 17:16. But nothing you will do will stop it, and it will control people with digital ID. You might say, well, I'm going to be raptured out of here. I don't know any rapture theories that believe we are raptured before the coming of Mystery Babylon. Some believe we're raptured before the coming of the beast, but remember, this empire comes before that. Our opinion then is that everybody is going to face this horrible empire, and everybody will face this digital ID. So let's look at how that will happen. If you've paid close attention in the last few years, you have seen that this makes perfect sense and was in fact entirely predictable. By tying the issue of health care into the digital surveillance apparatus, you end up with a very robust platform for automated mass control. The use of fear works well in this scenario since most are keen to stay alive and don't want their loved ones to die. So they fall for the lies like, quote, we have to shut down the world and hide indoors for months on end or we all die. Or lies like they have to protect us from all of those who are, quote, unprotected, unjabbed. So we must have a health passport. Of course, it won't stay a health passport for long. Your biometric data, your iris scan, your fingerprints, your facial scan will all be added to keep it from, quote, falling into the wrong hands. Then, when you think you're safe, your money will be converted to digital currency and it will become part of this passport too. Consider the devastating power a totalitarian regime can have over your life through their control of the system. Should they disapprove of what you say, what your view is, what you buy, where you go, how you behave, who you hang out with, losing your digital wallet to a common crook would be like a minor inconvenience in comparison to the government locking it up and taking it away. The dictators in charge could declare you a terrorist for participating in a protest and shut off your access to all government services, health care, bank accounts, with a single push of a button. Nothing you want to do in your life will ever be under your control again after this is implemented. In China, there are drones flying over traffic jams. Everyone has to flash their QR code on their phone to proceed to the next checkpoint. The drone reads the QR code. Only those with valid digital IDs are able to drive on the roads. Now, these drones aren't armed yet, but expect them to be in the future. Imagine the incentive to cooperate when you see the car in front of you hit by a drone missile. In Lithuania, here's what a father without a health pass had to say. My wife and I are banished from society. We have no income. Banned from most shopping. Can barely exist. We tried to buy art supplies for our kids from a craft store. No purchase allowed without a pass. We tried to buy educational toys in a toy store. We were barred from entering. Can't buy kitchen supplies. This pressure to submit is everywhere, and it's overwhelming. Our ability to survive has been destroyed. Can you see why the resurrected saints of all the ages choose to rejoice when this horrible system falls? And we are just beginning to enter this era of Mystery Babylon. That's why we're trying to prepare you now. This will, of course, eventually include your public faith. Do you want the dictators like this former U.S. president or Bill Gates or Klaus Schwab, director of the World Economic Forum, controlling what you say publicly about God? Can you also see what a small shift it will take to force the worship of the world onto a single man using this same system of digital ID? If you don't worship this man, you won't be able to buy or sell, or travel, or do anything, frankly. It looks like the mark of the beast will evolve out of this digital ID system to me. Transhumanism is another major aspect of where all this is going as well. Eventually, if you do not connect your mind to the computer running this system, you won't be able to access it. So at some point, you are going to have to choose to say no to the ever-increasing demands of the government, or you're going to lose your salvation. So let's review the path this is going to take. First, it was a pandemic, then a jab, then a health passport. We're kind of at that point now, not fully implemented. Then the biometric data is added, then your bank account, then your worship via the mark of the beast, and finally transhumanism as you connect your mind to the computer. Where along this pathway to unrighteousness will you disconnect from the system? It all starts with pharmaceutical sorcery or pharmakia. For your merchants, the billionaires, were the powerful people of the earth. They became the UN thought leaders because all the nations were deceived by your pharmakia, satanic pharmaceutical sorcery. And in her was found the blood of prophets and of saints and of all who have been slaughtered on the earth. They are going to kill a lot of people to get this done. And pharmakia was the starting point. God says, come out of her, my people, so that you will not share in her sins. Revelation 18:4. We are commanded to come out of Mystery Babylon. So where in this loop of ever-worsening technocratic control are you going to come out of her? You are going to have to come out at some point, or you will share in the sins of this coming one-world government. It is a question every Christian should be asking right now. But it won't be easy. As the father in Lithuania said, my wife and I are banished from society. We have no income. Our ability to survive has been destroyed. So how does a Christian prepare for such things? Do we pray about them? Absolutely. What kind of answers do you think we're going to receive? Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. God is enthroned in heaven. He has already told us through his word that a one-world empire of Babylon is coming. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. It isn't our will, but the Father's that matters. And this is part of his plan, to bring the kingdom of heaven to the earth. This has to come first. These are the, quote, things that must take place. In Daniel 2, these words are used about the statue, and in the Olivet Discourse, Jesus uses these same words, the things that must take place, in order for the return of Jesus to happen. Give us this day our daily bread. God will provide, but now is the time for us to put away necessities. He has given us this time as a blessing to do that. Forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. Horrible things are going to be done to us and our families. Yet, we are to forgive and pray for our enemies. It is the power of the cross to win in a manner that Jesus did. Lead us not into the trial, but deliver us from the evil one. God has promised to keep us from the hour of trial, which is the wrath of God. We will see the great tribulation, but not his wrath. We will see Mystery Babylon. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. That is what we are to keep our eyes focused on. All of this is about the kingdom, and we are to join him in bringing it about. Now, 2 months ago, Bill Gates and the World Economic Forum released a worldwide version of a health passport. Probably the most significant end-time sign yet, because it is the very next step on the pathway to digital ID that we've been discussing. And this week, a conservative U.S. state will be implementing digital ID in their state. Things are happening fast, but each one of these steps is intentional and have been conditioning us for what is coming. Click right here to keep watching to learn about the small things the government and global elites have done to condition us that you probably haven't even noticed. You will be shocked. Till then, this is Nelson, and I'll see you there.